What's up guys, welcome back to this channel. I am Justin Colby, and on this video we're going to talk about the housing market. It's awful and it's going to continue to stay awful. Check this out. What's up everybody, my name is Justin Colby and I do all things business, real estate, and entrepreneurship right here on this YouTube channel. And so if you have not yet, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel so you can get 3 videos a week that I drop each and every week. So first of all, make sure you are liking this video, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, and turn on that notification bell so you know when I drop these videos. Got it? All right, on this video, we're going to talk about how terrible the real estate market is. As someone that right this moment is actively looking to buy a home in Miami and can't, I can firsthand tell you how awful this is. But stay to the end because I want to give you a couple tips and tricks for you if you are looking to buy a home that could get you into the house that you ultimately want and beat out your competitors. Now first, let's talk about maybe why this is happening. And I use the word maybe. Scratch that. This is why it's happening. It's simple. Supply and demand. Now, this isn't anything that you don't already know or you haven't heard me say on my podcast. By the way, a little plug, the Science of Flipping podcast. Go check it out. I've said it on my podcast. I've said it right here on my YouTube videos. It is as simple as that. There is very little to no supply and there is an incredibly high demand. Well, what is causing this high demand? Well, it's because interest rates are incredibly low. Now, will that last forever is what people are thinking. This is why they're rushing to hurry up to take advantage of this low interest rate so that they can buy a home. Now, let's just unwind this and unpack this whole scenario because quite simply, it's silly. There's very little inventory on the MLS market in every city, not just here in Phoenix. And people are quite literally buying homes that they do not love because they want to take advantage of the low interest rate. This is why on previous videos I talk about you should not be buying a home. There will be a link to that video right on top of my head. So we have people rushing to take advantage of really low interest rates to buy a home that they kind of really don't even like anyways, but they're doing it just so they can have a home to live in. Well, part of me understands this so that they're not renting and paying someone else's mortgage. I also don't fully agree with you should be buying a home just because the interest rates are low. I personally subscribe a little bit more to the Grant Cardone model where I'm not a huge advocate of home ownership personally because I actually believe it's not a great investment, and as an investor myself, I tend to look at most, if not all things, as an investment opportunity. Now, newly married with a baby, I'm in a position that I absolutely am going to have to buy a home. I'm sure most of you guys can understand that. With that said, I have been looking, and so is my wife, trying to find a home that we actually really want to be in. That is the tricky part. Are there homes to buy? Yes. Are there homes that I want to live in or my wife wants to live in? Not really. So I'm not going to be forcing myself to buy a home just to take advantage of low interest rates. Now, to compound how bad the real estate market is, we're all aware of this, material costs have been rising and have risen over the last several months. Most of all, lumber. Building costs for lumber has become astronomical. So if you are looking to buy and remodel a home as an investor, or maybe you're looking to do your own remodel within your home, like I might have to do if I do buy a home I don't love, then the cost of those materials, such as lumber, such as PVC pipe, and so many other materials have absolutely skyrocketed. I mean, hundreds of %. And so now you got to take a look at the fact that if you buy a home you don't love and you're like, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy this home, take advantage of the low interest rate, and then I'm going to go remodel the entire kitchen. Well, now you're talking about an inflated cost of that remodel, let alone shortage of material because through COVID, supply chains were down, manufacturers were down, and so they weren't able to manufacture a lot of this type of stuff. And so again, supply and demand, funny we keep going back to this, since the manufacturing manufacturers in the supply chain were down, there's not a lot of supply, which means when they do start the supply again, they can actually ratchet up the price because high demand, low supply, they can charge us whatever they want. This isn't rocket science and probably is not actually telling you stuff you don't actually know. Now, most of this is something you're probably well aware of, but here's what really I believe is going to happen over the remainder of the year. When I'm shooting this video right now, it's the middle of 2021. I actually believe it's going to stay awful into the end of the year, and even then it might go for another 6 months. There is no line of sight for this actually changing. Now, could pricing of materials come down? The answer is yes. As of earlier in July, the pricing of lumber started to decrease. Well, guess what? As someone that is rehab flipping right now and actually is educating hundreds of individuals, there's not a student or myself that has seen a substantial price decrease in lumber. So guess what? The prices of our remodels are remaining high. People, this is called inflation. If you don't believe it is happening right now today, you are simply mistaken. I'm just giving you the example of what's happening in the real estate market. So enough about all this doom and gloom. Let's talk about actually how to go out and obtain a house if you so want. Listen, it is a good idea to take advantage of low interest rates, but I would tell you, don't go out and buy a home just because of low interest rate, because ultimately it's a home you probably don't love. There's quite literally nothing to choose from. But let's just use the example, like me, that you're willing to actually buy a home you don't love and you're willing to actually remodel it, or at the end of the day, you just want to buy a home. Well, how do you actually get an advantage over the competition, which there is a lot of, as we just spoke about, that the demand is incredibly high? Well, first, let's remove the contingencies. Some of the most common contingencies in offers of homes is going to be an appraisal contingency and a loan contingency. So let's talk about those. For me, I'm actually putting in offers in Miami without an appraisal contingency, because here's what is happening and that I've actually experienced. I come in with a full price offer. I didn't remove my appraisal contingency. Someone else comes in with a full price offer removing the appraisal contingency, and the home is already priced above value. And the reason they can do that is the same thing I've said before: supply and demand. So something that may be worth $1.1 million is now listed for $1.3 million. I come in at 1.3. I do not waive appraisal contingency. Someone else comes in at 1.3 and waives it. The seller knows that there's no way that this is likely going to appraise for $1.3 million because there's no comps supporting the numbers. Then the seller is going to take the person that waived their appraisal contingency. Another thing is, if you happen to be wealthy enough or rich enough to come in all cash, that could really help you. One of my best ways of removing a loan contingency is I have actually talked to several of my private money investors as well as hard money companies that I've worked with, and I said, hey, if I go in to buy my own home, are you willing to fund it as either a hard money or a private money loan, and then I can refi you out once I get it, so I can at least get the property. So that's one way that I'm able to remove the loan contingency. These two contingencies are in large part why a seller, even myself on my flips, I would choose other buyers if they don't have these contingencies. Why? Because it can speed it up, and there's a likelihood of me actually executing this transaction in a short amount of time and getting the dollars I want at the sale. Point number two, as we all realize there's high demand, there's multiple offers almost on every single property that gets listed, then you can put in what's called an escalation clause. This is much more common, especially companies like Zillow doing it, meaning if I have an offer in my offer, I actually put an escalation clause that I'll go up $5,000 above the other offer up until a certain price point. Now, as an investor, I've used this for several years when dealing with sellers, and now it is a lot more common when you see people trying to buy their own property. So point number two is put an escalation clause in. If you're going to buy a home for $1.1 million and you're willing to go to 1.2, let's say, then say $1.1 million with an escalation clause at $5,000 increments until $1.2 million. And that hopefully can help you actually beat your competition, and the seller would take your offer. That's point number two. And point number three, to keep it pretty simple, be flexible. There are many homes that I've actually put offers on that actually the homeowner is actually still living in, doesn't quite yet know where they're going to go, and or there's a tenant in place that has an extended lease. So if you are willing and able to take the risk and be flexible with the seller, they will choose you over someone who is unwilling to be able to just move in. So I actually say try to be a little bit more willing, be able to do a rent back, a lease back, or something so that you can actually win the bid and get the deal contracted rather than your competition. And by the way, if you have not yet liked this video, make sure you are liking this video. In fact, share it if you would. I would love that. And make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I appreciate it. Now here's a last tip that I'm going to give you if you're actually really interested in buying your own home, is maybe start looking at the expired or canceled listings. Listen, at one point that individual put that home up on the market in the last 6 months, let's say, there was an intent to sell. I would ask your agent or even yourself, go in and start calling the listing agent that didn't get the home sold. Say, hey, I saw that it expired, I saw that it canceled. Is there a way that we can engage with the seller again about selling their home, as I'm interested in buying it? Now they may want a lot of money and you may or may not be willing to go that route, but when there is a supply and demand issue and there is no supply, but you have this inventory of like what I would maybe consider ghost supply because they tried to sell at one point, why not reach out? It won't hurt you, it doesn't cost you any money, and potentially you're gonna get a home you actually really want versus maybe a home that is just available. So hopefully this is actually gonna help you guys buy a home, but I will tell you now, do not think that this is gonna turn around anytime soon. The cost of materials is likely gonna remain high, especially through the end of the year. Interest rates are going to stay low for sure till the end of the year, if not longer. And honestly, with all that said, I do not see any big wave of foreclosures coming. Although, if you go back to one of my older videos, I do talk about a wave of foreclosures. I just don't see it coming because I can't imagine that the government is going to just put 4 or 5 million people on the street and foreclose on them. And I can't imagine the banks want to have 4 or 5 million homes that they now own as REO. So hopefully this finds you well. And lastly, if you want to talk to me about me coaching you about how I do 20 wholesale and flips a month and I'm buying 2 to 4 rentals a month, go to thescienceoflipping.com, check it out, fill out a form, and hopefully some of my top advisors will get with you and see if I'm a good coach for you. I appreciate you. Show me some love, like this video, subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.